6 months ago, this hillside that you see behind me, no one was living here. It was just an open field. But after the earthquake that was so devastating in Port-au-Prince, people have started coming out of the city and finding places where they can settle. The reality is, the one thing that they need that they don't have, more than anything else, is water. Behind me, you'll see the first well that we have put in at New Work Fellowship to provide water for the people that are living here. In 6 months' time, it's gone from a population of 0 to over 5,000 people living literally in tents. Water is one of those things that we take for granted every day. We turn on the tap, we carry a bottle of water. But what would life be like if you didn't have water? It is the basic foundation for all of life. Maybe that's why you see God doing all kinds of things with water through the Scriptures. Whether it was providing water from a rock, whether it was parting the water of the sea, whether it was Jesus declaring that He is the water of life. As we join together with our partners here in Haiti, we have a great opportunity to literally save lives and introduce them to Jesus Christ, who is the living water and can rescue them.
The most moving few moments I had on the trip was when we went up to Blanquette to pass the gifts out to the children that the church had collected and we had put together in bags. All the children came inside, and when they came inside, they had them separated, boys on one side, girls on the other. And they all came in single file and sat down in the very back of the church, just as quiet. You could have heard a pin drop in the church. And them knowing, I guarantee they've had things passed up to them before, what was coming, what was about to happen, what they were going to get, that they don't receive any other time. Still, they were respectful, they were quiet, and they really didn't know how to act, I guess you could say. And right outside the door was a little baby about a year old, along with a bunch of other kids, just looking inside the doors, hoping that they could get in to get something, and not knowing if we had anything for them or not. Luckily we did, and all the children outside, they were able to have a bag too. And I think Willis has a photo of me with that little boy, and his mother was there, and she told me, she said she hoped he could have a bag. And wow, it's something that you don't see in the United States at all.
Lee Kinsoon is a name that I believe all of us learned and loved very quickly. A little boy in the burn clinic, an amazing little boy who had all of our hearts from the second his little braids walked in. That's what meant the most to me on this trip. You know, personally, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but at first when we got there, I wasn't sure about how much to touch the people, how much to let them touch me. You know, you hear so many different things, and it's embarrassing to even say that now. But being the first time over there, you don't know. There's a lot of new experiences. But I think it was maybe the second day there, and I saw Susan just kissing on the kids in the burn clinic and loving on them. And you know, all of that went out the window. And I looked forward to touching them or hugging on them, loving on them. And I think even more than that might have calmed some of them down, it stirred up things inside of me that I needed.
Many of the illnesses that we treated in the medical clinic were from abdominal pain to skin infections with fungal infections, or it may have been scabies, and a lot of it can be tied back to the lack of clean drinking water. One of the missionaries shared with us that sometimes people that live in these tent cities They walk 3 to 4 miles to get a bucket of water, and most likely that water is contaminated. The patients that would come in complaining with abdominal pain and diarrhea, particularly the kids, the doctors were going ahead and treating them for intestinal worms because so much of the drinking water is contaminated with that. Some of the doctors in Haiti have stopped treating for worms because they go back and they drink that same contaminated water and they reinfect themselves. So much of this is tied to the lack of clean drinking water for these people, and especially in the tent cities.
It was really powerful because when we first walked in, the kids were singing so loud and with so much passion that the guy leading the worship, his name was Israel, and he was just a real exciting worship leader. And you could, even though it was just this really poor area of town, and these kids didn't have anything, yet they were just singing with everything they had. And they were singing "Here I Am to Worship," and then a little bit later, I was able to play the keyboard and help lead us singing the English version of "Here I Am to Worship." And just to think about just being in the presence of God during that time of worship, it was just so powerful, and they just had so much joy in their voices as they sang and on their faces. It'll stick with me for a long time, I'm sure.
À nous crier, béni soit l'Éternel. Béni soit l'Éternel.
Being able to experience worship with them and to connect with what they were doing and what God was doing in that community, and just realize that God's the same all across the world, and He's just so much bigger than our little environment that we're here in Hopkinsville. It was a real deal. They're so dependent upon God, and it's so much of our relationship with Him is learning to be dependent upon Him, and they're just not burdened with all the stuff that we have to deal with, because all they have is to be dependent upon who God is. And I think that's why it's just so meaningful to be in that environment, because you can just you can understand more what God's trying to do in our lives and trying to break down all the stuff that we're involved in, and just realize it's just all about Him, and He loves us no matter what our situation is.
You can do this. This is not hard. You can come to Haiti. You can help drill a well. You can help support it. Get you a big goofy hat, get on the plane, and come to Haiti.